Are you ready?
Yeah, let's get going.
Welcome to the Morning Ramble. I'm Matt.
And I'm Eric.
Welcome to our Election 2018 special podcast. This is going to come out a day later than normal podcasts do, the day before Election Day. So if you want some information before you head out to those polls, you've come to the maybe right place.
And probably not. You should probably go somewhere else. But if you just want to listen to two people talk about it, then you come to the right place.
Thanks.
Yep. All right, but before we get started, if you watched our Halloween podcast, we talked about candy corn. And I mentioned about these M&M candy corn candies. And Matt talks about how much he hates it.
Man, you really just threw this on me.
Yeah, I didn't even tell you.
Okay.
How about you try some of those?
Fine. I will try some of the candy corn.
It's after Halloween, so they're on clearance.
All right.
I thought we'd start off good by putting a bad taste in your mouth. Kind of like politics.
Oh, that's weird.
Candy corn.
That is way sweeter than I expected.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet.
Oh.
I don't know. I'll just put those over here on the ground.
All right, let's go on to
All
this,
right.
Eric.
Okay, so we got that out of the way. That was funny. All right, so election 2018 tomorrow. Go out and vote November 6th. Matt's voting. I'm voting.
Yeah,
Right.
we're both voting.
All right, at the end, we'll let you know who we're voting for or not.
Santa.
All right, so before we get started, I know a lot of people say their vote doesn't matter. I know we've talked about Electoral College in the past couple weeks. Real quick, as we get started around here, around 138 million Americans voted in the 2016 election. From Business Insider, however, those 138 million Americans only make up 58.1% of our voting eligible population. Now, it's 58% in a very, I guess you could say, high stakes presidential election. That's kind of crazy, isn't it?
That's funny too, because that was a really good voter turnout year.
Yeah, 58 is high.
And by the way, like this coming election, tomorrow
it's midterms.
is midterms, so the numbers will be significantly
And
down.
I think that's why you see a lot of people in Hollywood stressed to vote. Like, you know how they always come out with those videos. I mean, it seems like the voter turnout might be close to that number, but I'm going to be surprised if we break 50%, to be honest.
Myself as well, I think that
Midterms.
would be a problem.
Yeah. So, all right. So we got an article here from The Hill. Democrats look for a blue wave. We talk about the waves: blue, red, pink, purple, yellow. Who knows? Among millennial voters, we talked about this. Younger voters typically go Democrat. But there was a couple little facts here I thought were interesting. A survey found that 40% of 18 to 29-year-olds said they will definitely vote in the upcoming congressional elections, according to U.S. Census data cited by Harvard researchers. So about 40%. I mean, that's pretty good among young voters. But again, how much can you trust the census data?
Well, that's the main problem, because generally, it's a problem for one side, not so much of a problem for other side.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, right-leaning people will go to vote every election. Generally, left-leaning people don't go out to vote on the midterms.
Midterms is typically more Republican. And as someone who is a Republican, you might be able to say, oh, like, I'm happy about that. I'm not. I want everyone to vote. I don't care what you're voting for. Just go vote.
Yeah, I want this to be a better society, and that starts with people caring about it.
And don't just go out and throw. I make jokes. I'm just going to throw the Republican. It's not a lever anymore. It's a button. But like that. But definitely go out and look into. I know a lot of people have talked about different things that are up for vote right now. Like if you watch last week Tonight with John Oliver, he did a whole segment about state attorneys general. I'm not going to talk about it. Philip DeFranco talked about it a little bit this past week on YouTube. He was talking about state attorneys general, and that's a very interesting position. So go see their videos, if you want to learn a bit more about that. But yeah, so I'm hoping that it'll be definitely a higher percentage this year. We have things that people are trying to persuade their voters with. Matt's looking at something horrible right now. Let's take a look. So, breaking news, Democrats supporting women strip off for photo shoot called Grab Them by the Ballot in an attempt to persuade people to vote against Republicans. No.
Not
I don't. So wait,
That really,
before you
really does not seem like something.
Before you react, I just want to read something to you. Okay, so I can't even talk. A diverse group. I can talk. Be quiet. Of 10 Vermont women who have the same opinion. That's not in the article, but I'm just saying that. Because they're saying that they're diverse, but they're not. Gathered over the weekend to create an edgy get out and vote campaign, urging participation in the upcoming election. Unhappy with the direction of the country, the women of various shapes, sizes, ages, and backgrounds barred. I should probably make this bigger so I can read. Would that be better, Matt? There we go.
It's actually 100% better.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. They barred an intimate, empowering photo session in Burlington, said organizer Don Robertson. How can we inspire women to vote after the Kavanaugh confirmation? The hashtag #MeToo movement and Trump, said Robertson, a Harvard law-educated attorney who writes about sexuality and relationships. It's a cumulation of all those factors. They're very empowered. What do you think, Matt? Is this going to work?
I mean, it does seem a little bit tone deaf, actually. And I'm I'm well known to respect whatever women are trying to do. Mm-hmm. If they want to do something like this, that's fine. Yep. I don't really care. But like, just going back to what you were just reading, mm-hmm. like, how can we inspire women to vote after the Kavanaugh confirmation, the Me Too unit, and Trump? Honestly, it is already inspiring women to vote because they're looking at some of this stuff. Now, I know a lot of it is alleged.
Yeah.
So legally, there's very little that can be done.
Yeah.
About any of this stuff. But I do know that there are a lot of women that are up in arms about the direction of the country and all of these allegations that have been put forward to officials. And again, it's nothing that can be done legally. Mm-hmm. But if that gets them out to vote, and if that's the catalyst that gets them out to vote, I'm all for it.
I can't do any of this. Seriously. We're talking about sexual assault or accusations of sexual assault. So what do? How do we feel empowered, fellow women? We get naked. Doesn't make any sense. Why is you're trying to take your body out of the factor so that you can focus more on your opinion, right? To empower women. They have an opinion. They have something that they want to be put through, whether it's in the Congress or something like that. They have a vote. Why are you getting naked?
I don't know. Some women are empowered by
I'm gonna get naked.
By putting their clothes on. Some women are empowered by taking them off.
All right. Well,
anyway, I don't know how brains work.
There's a website. They have a link to a 21 slideshow of photos. We're gonna look at it right now.
Let's not.
I'm just kidding. All right, let's get away from this. I'm tired of looking at it. I'm going to put a link below. There was an article in Bloomberg. I thought this would be good to talk about before we talk about the election here. So it says here that there's a breakdown here, and they have a couple different maps that break it down even further. But the big issues that you're seeing on TV for healthcare, taxes, and jobs. So these are the ads that we're seeing. And after I saw this, I thought, wow, I really am seeing that topic more often. So it's talking about ads here. And if you look here, it shows different parts of the country, what the ads and what the candidates are most likely panning to. So we're in northeastern PA, and it's pretty much all yellow for taxes. And I don't know if you listen to the radio, but how often do you hear Scott Wagner, our governor candidate Republican, talking about how he's going to take away school taxes? Have you heard that or no?
No, I did not hear that.
I listen to the radio every week, and it's constantly being pounded on the radio. And he's not going to do it, first of all. You can't just take away school taxes. I don't understand why he says that.
I mean, I'm always kind of... I'm confused about what some people think taxes are. Mm-hmm. Because people are just like, the government's taking money away from me. Those taxes are paying for infrastructure.
Well, I mean, you have to look at your pay stubs. I mean, it's not just, here's a tax, we're taxing your money. It's a breakdown. There's Medicare, there's Social Security, there's federal, there's state, there's local, there's school taxes. I mean, there's tons of different breakdowns. So if a governor of your state can lower your local school taxes, that's not going to have any effect on Social Security, Medicare, or federal. So but anyway, so taxes, looks like Northern California, there's a big anti-Trump. I don't know why. Healthcare is in Florida because there's a lot of old people.
Wow, that is just the solid Florida.
Well, I thought it'd be public safety, like in northern Texas, but it's mostly healthcare. And then I like how Tennessee, Tennessee there in lower, is just all pro-Trump. I thought that was funny.
Wow.
And then Maryland's anti-Trump, and then up in Rhode Island they got some social issues because they don't matter.
But boy, looking at this map, healthcare is all over.
Healthcare is the majority coverage of it, and I'll put the link down below. You can take a look at it. It kind of breaks it down more into each topic and what is.
What's happening in the rest of Alaska?
Public safety, and then it's just white.
And then it's just white. That's because there's snow there.
All right.
I'm on top of my game tonight, people.
All right. We're good to go.
This morning. It's the morning.
Yep.
The Morning Ramble.
Morning Ramble. All right. So let's get into the different elections here. We're going to get real small here in a second. Woo! I did that on purpose. All right. So first we're going to talk about the House. Matt, do we need to explain to our viewers what the House, Senate, and governor's races are?
Oh, man. I thought you were going to say what the House was, and I was like, oh, it's a place you live, Eric.
Oh, thanks.
Yes, we should give a very brief.
Okay, so the House, basically every seat is up in the House. The House is basically your federal, not local, but it's a small, basically every state has different, help me out. Representatives, yeah. And they have 2-year terms.
Yes.
And they're up for re-election every year. So you'll see here up above, these are not what's current. These are currently what's projected. All of my sources are going to be down below. These are just opinions. I was debating about getting a bunch and kind of kind of averaging them out, but I thought I would just grab one that I like the most. So right now they're showing that the House is most likely going to shift towards Democrats. And this is something that I've kind of seen overall across the board, where it looks like right now, according to the polls, the Democrats look like they're going to take over the House. Right now, the Republicans control the House and the Senate.
Right.
So this is something that is most likely going to happen. I would be very surprised if it didn't.
I would be surprised, but at the same time, maybe I wouldn't be, because I was shocked by the 2016 election.
Yeah, but in history and throughout every presidency, the midterm elections of a president's first term, usually they lose one or the other. They always lose one. So Obama, the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate, I believe, in 2008. 2010 midterms, I think one or not both went to the Republicans. I think it was the House.
Yeah, they lost one of them.
I
don't remember which one.
I forget. But it always turns one way or the other. If you look on the screen, there's a map. Kind of shows a little bit. Montana's a toss-up. Nevada's a toss-up. Alaska's a toss-up.
Well, I mean, is Sarah Palin running?
No.
Good.
I don't think she's running for anything. She doesn't run for...
Good.
I don't think she's done anything since 20.
You know what, honestly, that Sarah Palin's looking better and better.
All right, let's stop. Let's just stop.
I'm kidding.
This is where you go to get your election information.
You're welcome, people.
We talk about 10-year-old politicians and how attractive they are.
10-year-old?
Well, she hasn't done anything since 2008, right? When she was
still governor
of Alaska.
Yeah,
that's like Canada. It's America's hat.
Let's just.
All right, let's stop.
Let's move on.
All right. So it looks like there's about 36 toss-ups that they're in between. A lot of them, I see on there Georgia, New York, PA District 10's up in 16. I was going to have a breakdown of everything, but there's just so much information to cover.
Right.
Basically, what I wanted to say as we go through each one of these maps is, if you see the screen here and you see what the projections are, you don't like it, get out and vote. You know? And this should be persuasion.
And if you see the things and you like it,
don't vote.
Get out and vote.
That's how it works. If you don't vote, that's what happens.
Yeah.
But Republicans, I think, are just as motivated as Democrats because, they know from voting in the midterms that usually it does swing the other way from 2 years prior. So there is a good chance that the House will be overturned. But let's take a look at the Senate. And speaking of the Senate, we're getting into Rubio watch. Now.
The Rube.
Rubio watch. Now, Rubio is a senator of Florida, if you did not know that, and shame on you if you did not.
5'9", absolutely just chock full of muscle.
He's just jacked. The Rube is not up, but he has, I think, 2 more years on his term. Senators will serve 6 years on the Senate. Each state has several senators based off their population, which we're going to get into at the end of this video, is the population of states. So, Rubio watch, we got Marco Rubio here. There he is, finishing up the last screw of Florida, of fixing everything from the hurricane.
He's done such an amazing job.
And there he is, heading back to the office after a hard day's work.
Yeah, it's honestly shocking how well he cleans up after he's done doing it.
That was like right after. All right, getting on a serious note. So, Marco Rubio. I thought those eyes would freak you out.
I'm a little scared.
That is the new photo for Rubio watch, by the way. Good. So Marco Rubio on Friday, he actually was in Florida. There's 2 big races going on in Florida, which I'm definitely going to be interested in seeing on Tuesday and Wednesday what's going to happen. Rick Scott's running for the other senator slot. I don't know if Florida has 2 senators or 3. Shouldn't have probably said anything since I didn't know it. But Rick Scott is running for one of them. But anyway, so he was at a rally for, I think, the Republican governor, Ron DeSantis, Florida, talking to a bunch of people who wanted to hear him talk. And that's what Rubio was up to.
I'm so glad we catch up with him.
We do. He's very exciting.
He's become a very big part of my life.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the senators. So right now the Senate is controlled by Republicans. It is projected to stay that way, but very minusculely, I guess you can say. There is about 6 toss-up seats, a couple that will be turning blue. Obviously, California is going to stay that hard blue. Nevada and Montana are usually big toss-up states. We're not really; those usually swing either way. Arizona, now normally Arizona is a very big red state.
Right.
They have that in the toss-up slot because over the past couple of years it has been changing, and now since McCain, the late John McCain, has passed away, his seat is open, and it is up. I'm not sure who's running for him, but it's definitely, I know, a close race in there. As you can see, Florida, it's a toss-up between Rick Scott. I have a couple of people that I know that live down in Florida. One of my friends who's a big Democrat, he's always sharing stuff, how much he hates Rick Scott. But PA, our home state, that's projected to go blue. Now, PA, we have 2 senators. One's Pat Toomey, Republican. He won 2 years ago with Trump, so he's going to be in there for another 4 years.
Right.
He won't be up until the next presidential term, midterm. And right now, Bob Casey, a sitting Democrat, is running against Lou Barletta.
Yes.
Now, the past 2 terms, so past 12 years, I think that seat has been held by a Democrat. I don't know if it was Bob Casey both times. I know the last time it was. I don't know if he's been sitting there, though, for 12 years. They're having it going blue. As someone who lives in the state, I don't know. It seems pretty diverse. Now, it's kind of hard to tell because the county we live in.
It's hard to tell in this area because this does lean more to the right.
Well, it's all Barletta because this was Barletta's district. This was when he was a congressman.
I distinctly remember Barletta.
Yeah,
like the name sticks in my head.
And after 2 years ago, I think Trump offered him a cabinet slot. He actually turned it down respectfully because he wanted to run for Casey's seat this year. So we will see.
It's a good thing he didn't take that cabinet seat.
Yeah.
Nobody lasts in Trump's cabinet.
Honestly, it is that way, isn't it?
I'm shocked by how long Sarah Huckabee Sanders has been in there.
She does a great job.
She really does.
You
couldn't
have your own
pick
opinion
anybody
on Trump.
better.
Yeah, you could have your own opinion on Trump, but Sarah Huckabee Sanders does an amazing job. I don't think anyone else could do that job because I've seen multiple people get fired.
We've seen multiple people try and fail.
Melissa McCarthy, she didn't do a very good job.
And
that's an SNL joke.
The mooch. What was his name?
Anthony Scaramucci.
Scaramucci.
I only know he was on Colbert, the Late Show. I don't know why he had him on. Just to make fun of him.
Just for reasons.
But yeah, so Democrats, they have 6 toss-ups. 44 stay in blue. Obviously, some of those are not up for re-election right now, and then the 50. So I was looking at some of them. It's very possible this could be a straight 50-50 split. Now, there are 2 independents. Now, usually we kind of categorize them with Democrats because one of them's Bernie Sanders, and the other one, I forget the gentleman's name. I think he's Maryland. Forget the senator's name, but anyway, they're both independents. They usually side with Democrats. So if you want to make it easier, they're on the Democratic side. But yeah, so it's going to be a definitely close race in the Senate. If the House and the Senate both go Democrat, I'm going to say the next 2 years are going to be very frustrating, I think, for this country, because Trump's not going to work too much with them.
Yeah.
And the Democrats aren't going to work with him.
Basically, what we'll have is something very similar to Obama's last 2 years.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of executive decisions, which as soon as it switches over, because it will, whether it be the next presidential election or the presidential election after that.
Yeah.
Because that's been the trend in this country for the last 30 years or something like that.
It's the same cycle.
So then once it switches over, all of those executive decisions are overturned, and we start this cycle over again.
Yeah, it's
frustrating.
It is frustrating.
I think that's why people get frustrated about going out and voting. But realistically, if people get more involved in this country, we could actually make changes that would benefit everybody. We could, as long as people care about it, then we can actually work on these frustrating things.
Yeah.
And we can go somewhere with it. I don't know how. I'm running in 2020. It is I, Matt Hans, for president.
For president?
It's going to be, that's illegal because I'm not 35.
I would say, I wouldn't mind going for congressman, but let's not talk about that.
Let's run.
Let's do it. All right, let's move on. So our last race, obviously there's more positions that are going to be on your ballot if you go, depending on what state you're in. Like I said before, state attorneys general, senator, congressman, governor, depending on where you live. So we're looking at the governor's race now. There are several governors up for re-election. The top there, you're going to see the current projections with the current sitting ones and not. So it looks like they're projecting there's about 11 toss-ups, which is quite a few. Yeah. I was looking at some other ones. From what I could see, it looks like there's going to be about I think it was 26 Republicans and like 24 Democrats. That's like the projection. So it's projected to go mostly. Now, it doesn't really matter how many Republican governors and Democrat governors are because it's not the federal government. It's not like they have a vote. It's more about how your state is run.
But that can just keep in mind the governor has some power.
Well, we're going to talk about that
state.
This governor's race is actually a little bit different than any other one. We're going to talk about that in a second. But looking at the map here, California, stay in blue. Nevada, again, another toss-up state. Nevada is a very big toss-up state in all these races. Texas is red, go figure. Actually, I was looking at that. It looks like there's a close race there as well. Oh, and one thing we didn't talk about with the senator's race is Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz is a big surprise because that's a close race. And Ted Cruz, obviously, very popular in Texas. But the governor's up as well. Florida, DeSantis, and I forget the gentleman's name. And then PA, we got Tom Wolf. He won 4 years ago. And now we got Scott Wagner, who is an ex-senator, I believe. Tom Wolf's projected to win. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be surprised if he doesn't.
I am too. Scott Wagner doesn't seem like a very strong candidate.
From who I've talked to as Republicans, no one's really crazy about the guy. I'm not that crazy about the guy.
From what I've seen, I'm not a huge fan.
Obviously, some Republicans who are straight Republicans are just going to throw that Republican button down. Same thing with Democrats are going to hit that button because in PA, like a lot of other states, we have congressmen obviously up. we have a senator up, and we have governors up. Not everyone has that. And so there's a lot going on. New York, hard blue as well. I know Cumio, and, it's funny. I don't even know the Republican candidate in New York, but I know the Libertarian one, Larry Sharp.
Larry, he just sounds like an ace attorney.
I like Larry Sharp, but anyway, he's not going to win, but I like him. But I don't even know the Republican candidate in New York, so
I mean,
there's no reason to.
It would be an absolute shock.
Oh, New York is never going to go red.
One that kind of surprises me is Oregon. That's a toss-up.
Yeah,
that is that's kind of surprising to me.
I mean, out west, it's leaning more Democrat as it goes out. I mean, Arizona, they're having leaning right. They're having it lean Republican. But like I said, it's turning. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an upset there. But yeah, as you can tell, the middle is just going to be all red. There's a couple that are toss-ups, but, So we're talking about the governor's race, and I wanted to bring up an interesting point lastly here, and that is the 2020 census. So, Matt, do you know what a census is?
That's where they count the people.
That's where they count. They do a head count. Everyone gets in a circle. Duck.
Yeah, it is basically what it is, though.
Yeah, so every 10 years, our government conducts a census. It happened in 2010. But basically, there's a lot of power here with this election, because whoever gets voted in your state legislator is going to have the power to write out the congressional districts. And that so go out and voting for your congressman matters, because in 2 years they're going to have the 2020 census around. And I know there's a lot of talk about gerrymandering, so get some officials in there that you trust.
That's hard.
It's hard. It is tough. It's hard to know who to vote for, and there's a lot of information out there. I'm going to put out an article out here to the Washington Post. I think they do a really good breakdown of what's at stake with the 2020 census. So look for that link down below. But we have a map over here, and let me blow it up here, because this has they did a really good breakdown of per state what's at stake here. So over here, the blue ones are just governor races. So I'm going to come back to that real quick, because that's one point I wanted to point out lastly. Yellow is just a legislative race. So there's a few states there. Looks like Utah, Indiana, West Virginia. And then green, which most of the country looks pretty green, is both a governor and a legislative race. So legislators are going to be drawing up districts in 20 years based off the census. Governors have the power to veto those write-ups. So, depending on who the governor is in your state at that time, depending on the laws of each state, and in PA, Tom Wolf, Scott Wagner, they could have the power to veto if they don't like the congressional drawings. And that's where, you have gerrymandering and stuff coming in. So it's very complicated, and I don't have the knowledge to break it down completely. Excuse me. But I thought it was good to point out.
It is definitely
because
good to point
a lot
out.
of people think, oh, governor, whatever, but it matters, because especially in 2 years, because they're going to have the power that most governors and legislators don't have. Once every 10 years they have it. Matt, did you want to read this, or did you want me to?
If you zoom in on it a little, I can read it.
This I just grabbed this is a little piece from that Washington Post article. I grabbed that points out a couple things. There you go.
In many states, the winner of 2018 races for governor and state legislative seats will wield considerable power. The once-per-decade responsibility to redraw congressional maps. After the 2020 census provides an updated account of where people live, it will be up to the states to adjust their districts to fit that new reality. Elections to the U.S. House will operate under the new maps starting in 2022 and for the following 10 years. In all, 20 governors and more than 800 state legislators who could have a hand in the new maps will be selected in November, according to that people. In some states, the process has brought with it gerrymandering, the drawing of districts to advantage or disadvantage one party or race, tilting the makeup of the U.S. House, and resulting in years of legal challenges.
Yeah,
gerrymandering is a tough thing.
It's a tough thing to control. Real quick, it's 29 governors, not 20. But I know the screen's a little dull.
Yeah, I'm a little bit far away.
That's fine. Yeah, yeah, you're better. You did a lot better than I would have. Yes, gerrymandering's a hard thing to control. But it's very important to go out and vote, because and that's why. a lot of people probably know PA was recently in the news last year because there was a redrawing of our districts. It's not just PA. I know North Carolina, and there's a couple other states I know of that they get those weird shapes. They look like horseshoes and then like a Pokemon shape. Like, it's very strange.
Our districts were very strangely shaped.
Well, I mean, I know why. They were drawn weird because in the bottom, the south east part of PA is Philadelphia, and that is the majority of the population of our state. Obviously, Pittsburgh has a very high population, but Philadelphia, it was drawn so strangely. And I know, and you can't be super naive because a lot of them are drawn that way because of populations.
Right.
You can't just make a square, because the populations are going to be greatly different, and then that proposes the difference of you have kind of like what we were talking about with electoral college.
Right.
If you put Philadelphia in one district, all those people are going to have their votes barely going to count compared to like in the middle of PA, south of State College or whatever, in between State College and like Harrisburg. There's barely any people out that way. They're going to have a huge impact on the way the state moves. So there does need to be a little bit of fiddling.
Yeah, it can't just be squares. I'm looking at you, states in the middle of the country, squares.
Square.
But no, they can't just be squares, because if you look at a city, the way that they were originally made,
yep,
it's whack.
Yeah.
It's whacked up. It's like a city block. There's no regulation on how big that is.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can't just do squares. So I fully understand that sometimes you're going to have weird shaped things. I just don't like it when people are purposely trying to redo that. But is there ever going to be a perfect way to do it? I don't think so.
No, there's not. But that's what's so important about this year, especially. And I know a lot of people were focusing on this because if you look at that map, it looks pretty green to me. Nevada is going to be very interesting to see. A lot of the southern states, Florida, all of them have both governor and legislative slots open. So it's important to go out and vote because a lot of those are going to have an effect. Because even if, there's just a legislator up, the governor is going to have a say, the final say, in how those maps are drawn up. So, yeah, that is, I think, all we have. If you look at the top here, our last couple projections here, again, if you want to get a full breakdown of these, I think I got them. I think I got most of them from Real Political. Looks like Senate still holding on to the Democratic side ever slightly. So it's very possible it could be like a 51-49 type of deal.
The Republican side.
To the Republican side.
Yeah, you said Democratic.
Did I?
Yeah.
Well, it could be that way too. Who knows?
It's a really weird. It could end up either way.
Mm-hmm.
It's close.
This is a close election. 2 years ago, it looks like it wasn't going to be a close election, and it was. So that just goes to show you what's at stake. It could get down to a very few amount of districts and people. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Uh-huh.
Well, are we about done?
Yeah, I think we're about done. That is our election preview.
Thank you for joining us on the Morning Ramble.
We hope that we learned something.
Go out and vote.
That's
tomorrow.
right.
It's tomorrow. Go out and vote. Do the vote. Please
do that vote
rock
thing.
the vote. Blue waves, red waves, purple waves.
Yellow waves, green waves, if you're the Green Party.
We have been the Morning Ramble. Have a nice day.
All right.